We've all seen the movie The Matrix. It was interesting and fun on the big screen of the TV, but has it become a bit too real in your own life? Are you seeing glitches in the Matrix and trying to figure out what's happening? Have you been told that you've been tricked and that you need to fight against what they've done to you? The deception. Whether you're just beginning to notice, or if you've been searching for a more peaceful and congruent way to live without battling them, you're in the right place. I'm Ken, and I'll be joined by Eliza and Raina Stella. Let's explore together on the Liberty Ark. All right, we're back for episode number 21 of the Liberty Ark Podcast, and we're reviewing a book by the name of The Great International Heist by some friends of ours, Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues. And I'm Ken, and Eliza and Raina Stella are here with me this evening, as always. And Raina Stella, how you doing?
Doing really good, Ken. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
Eliza, how about you?
Doing great. Glad to be here with you both. Thank you.
Good. Tonight is story time. We have a short story that is part of the book that illustrates a lot of the things that we talked about last week. Last week, we went through a lot of definitions, and this will put those definitions into a practical approach that I think will make good sense. And then we'll talk together after the story and kind of bring it up to date to how this might relate to what's going on today and what you're experiencing. Okay, so I'm going to step aside here and let Eliza do the reading. If I can get the
Thanks,
page
Ken.
up. There we go.
All right. So episode 21, The Journey to Freedom, a tale of indenture and slavery. In the 17th century, amidst the bustling ports and the New World's promise, people from all walks of life faced the harsh realities of survival. This story unfolds the intertwined fates of two individuals bound by the concept of slavery, an Englishman named Thomas and a German woman named Anna. Each had a unique path, but both shared the common thread of indenture and bondage. Thomas was a free man living in a small village on the coast. One fateful night, his village was raided by kidnappers seeking laborers. Captured and shackled, Thomas became a slave, a chattel property of another. The term slave, derived from Slav, highlighted the widespread enslavement of various peoples throughout history. Stripped of his freedom, Thomas was transported across the treacherous Atlantic Ocean, bound for the plantations of the New World. Anna, on the other hand, was a young woman from Germany who sought a better life. Her family, impoverished and burdened by debt, saw an opportunity when a wealthy landowner offered to pay for her passage to America. In return, Anna would become an indentured servant, bound by a formal contract of indenture. The indenture was a written document cut in a zigzag line to create two identical parts. Each party held one, proving the authenticity of the agreement when placed together. Upon arrival, Thomas and Anna's fates diverged, but remained painfully similar. Thomas was sold to a plantation owner, becoming a slave whose every action was controlled. He had no rights, no freedom, and was considered mere chattel, property to be used and disposed of at the owner's will. Anna, although not a slave, found herself in a harsh and unforgiving environment. Her indenture contract bound her to serve her master for 7 years in exchange for passage, food, clothing, and shelter. Her labor and life were tied to the terms of the indenture, making her an indentured servant. Her status, though legally distinct from a slave, often felt similar in the daily grind of servitude. Both Thomas and Anna were under bonds, formal written agreements ensuring their obedience and labor. Thomas's bondage was absolute, with no end in sight. Anna's indenture had a specified period, but the bond she was under demanded a surety, a guarantee of her performance and compliance. Should she fail to fulfill her obligations, severe penalties awaited her. The plantation owner who controlled Thomas also managed several indentured servants, including Anna. His wealth and land were held in a trust, a legal arrangement where his assets were managed for his benefit and that of his heirs. The trust provided a sense of security and continuity, ensuring that the plantation and its workers, including Thomas and Anna, remained bound to the land and its profits. Every deed, whether transferring land or purchasing new slaves, reinforced the owner's power. The deed, a written instrument conveying property, was a symbol of control and possession, further entrenching the system of slavery and indenture. Years passed, and Anna's period of indenture neared its end. She had endured harsh treatment and back-breaking labor, but held on to the hope of freedom. Her indentured deed was about to be fulfilled, granting her the possibility of a new beginning. Thomas, however, saw no such light at the end of his tunnel. His bondage seemed eternal, a life sentence with no hope for release. Yet the spirit of resistance and the dream of freedom burned within him. Anna, now free from her indenture, decided to stay on the plantation, working to save money and eventually buy land of her own. She vowed to help those still in bondage, using her newfound freedom to make a difference. Thomas, inspired by stories of runaway slaves finding refuge and freedom in the northern states, began to plan his escape. He knew the risks, but was determined to break the chains of slavery and claim his life back. Anna and Thomas's stories represent the intertwined yet distinct paths of those bound by the concepts of slavery and indenture. Chattel, bond, indenture. These terms defined their lives, but their spirits yearned for freedom. Anna's journey from indentured servant to a free woman showed the harsh yet temporary nature of indenture, while Thomas's struggle highlighted the brutal and perpetual state of slavery. Their resilience and determination to overcome the oppressive systems of their time serve as a testament to the enduring human spirit quest for freedom and dignity. Do you see any ways in which these concepts have morphed into a different but similar version of control in our current world?
So that's the end of the reading. Now we're going to kind of reflect back on it. And since folks out there can't respond to that question, I guess we'll have to respond to it and see what folks think. So you guys got some thoughts?
The first thing that I would just want to mention is the fact that last episode we did, and I know you mentioned it, Ken, at the beginning here before the read, is if you do need to read the story a second time, I would go back to the previous episode and really listen to the definitions, because we covered them all last episode, and that really helped me understand the story a lot more, with the fact that I knew what the meaning of the words we went over last episode were. So just as a little tip. But to answer that question on my end, absolutely. I mean, it's what we're going through today, just slightly different, and maybe even just the terminology or even the words used. We're going through the same thing Thomas and Anna went through on this story. So absolutely, I have to say.
So we don't have the term slavery and indentured servant anymore, but we have pretty much all the aspects of it for the most part.
And we do have this story actually overtly says in some way there were contracts. Now, you don't always have to realize that you're in a contract, and you don't always realize that you're not free because of it. But we have to dig a bit deeper, and that's what we as friends here are sharing with each other, of those journeys, and that this indentured nature or slavery is still occurring.
Yeah, it's just not evident like it was in the past. But if you're incapable of really doing what you choose, as long as you don't hurt anyone else, there's some degree of control over you. And that's really what the indentured servitude and slavery was all about, is somebody else is able to control you. Now, we all get told that we're free, but most of us do activities every day because that's what we have to do, not because that's what we choose to do.
What I want to, in a way, break down is, because it put me to think a lot when I read this story, is how is it, we're talking, this story is, it says 17th century. So how far back and how far in the future will we be capable to break cycles so more people realize that this is not the way it should be? I'm thinking, okay, it's more evident now. I think you said, Ken, it's more evident, or it was more evident before and not so much today. But if that was the 17th century, it was happening even before.
Mercy, yes.
Where are we today? And it just seems like there's definitely some of us, right, discussing it and talking, having conversations, engagement in regards to it. And it just, I want to be able to understand what is it that's going to help us really get to the point of enough is enough. Like, okay, fine, we can individually each do it for ourselves and our immediate families, but there are so many of us. Like, why is it taking so long for everybody to really understand that this is not the way it should be?
Oddly enough, I mean, I understand what you're asking. The unfortunate thing is that if the majority, I would say the majority of people heard what we're saying right now, they would think we're nuts because they think they're free. Because they've not had the experience of freedom ever, and they've been told forever what they're experiencing is freedom. So they've been trained, and a lot of free stuff is given, So, like, I think Eliza sent me something the other day, kind of the classic thing about the mouse in the mousetrap. Can you remember how that's worded? The mouse can't figure out that
gets caught in a trash trap. It doesn't realize that the cheese isn't actually free.
It looks free.
That's what looks free.
Yeah.
A lot of this reminds me of, okay, how have we evolved here? It's like, it's been a slow drip. Mm-hmm. It went from slavery and the concept of being indentured, okay, promising, basically your life, many years of your life away in exchange for something. But then, okay, we don't have slavery anymore. And now it came into, say, look at the mines around the world. In the UK, they were big everywhere, but they were big here too. And what were they controlled by? The company towns, okay? You had to pay company housing that was overinflated. You had to pay at the company store, prices overinflated. Everything was was priced and taxed to keep you poor and working. They could not allow the masses to be financially free, or they would lose the workforce. Does that remind you of anything today? It's almost impossible to say between prices and taxes and blah, blah, blah. What's really behind all that? Can they allow the masses to be wealthy from their own freely given labor, energy? So are we in one big company town?
Do you
with
remember
the guise of being free because we're told that? Oops,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Rena Stella, do you remember how you worded it last week? That as a slave or an indentured servant, you worked X number of hours a day and you were given a place to sleep and food. And now what do? You work X hours a day.
Same thing.
And you get to go buy food and pay for lodging out of what you earn from that. So it looks like you're making choices, but in reality, you're just
same.
It's exactly the same thing. And the intention is that you can never get out of it. And there's a whole different level of people that don't have any relationship to that life that the rest of us have.
Well, is it maybe that the people that are, let's say, receiving a lot of free things because of, the promises that are made, and of course, that is where they get too comfortable and they really don't care about anything else because, hey, why should I even care? I'm taken care of. That's the mentality, I think. That's why that's possibly on the, what I'm trying to figure out is why is it taking so long for all of us to wake up, right? And it's because people are comfortable and they don't want to get uncomfortable to realize that there's, the reality over here. I don't know. I just find it so disturbing that it's an ongoing thing. It's not even like something that happened 200 years ago, or we're talking like thousands of years ago. And then I'm thinking, okay, wait, so that means that, is this going to continue for thousands of years in the future as well? Because there are a lot of us waking up, but why hasn't the complete cycle broken down is the question.
I think it's because it's just a component of human nature and habituation to where there's certain people that are just born different and value freedom and choice over comfort. And other folks, again, the phrase we've used in the past on this podcast is that it's not legal to force anyone into slavery in the U.S., but you can choice yourself into slavery if you choose to. So the best slave is the slave that doesn't even know they're a slave.
Or doesn't care, because I think we have those different factions, those who will fight for their true freedom, mm-hmm. and those who would trade their freedom for the convenience. And that was, Rena Stella, you mentioned a couple thousand years ago, they called it bread and circus. How did the Romans handle the impoverished masses who were waking up to the unfairness of the system? You started feeding them and giving them entertainment. It was called bread and circus. The Colosseums, etc. That was all about that. So you had those who said, no, I'm not taking the free stuff. I'm really going to get out from under the system. And those that said, the free stuff's too easy, I'll take it, and didn't change the underlying circumstances. And we have that real dichotomy going today, I believe.
Exactly the same thing with sports today, for sure. So I think the answer to my own question, I'm going to utilize like Thomas, right? He eventually said, I am going to plan my escape. I'm going to begin planning my escape. So now I'm taking that like myself. I'm a specific, like I'm 53. I just found out, and I woke up to this information a couple years ago. So there's my answer, is like exactly like Thomas. It took him many years to finally decide I'm going to plan my escape. It took me 51 years, and now I'm finally planning to become more informed about this information, to be able to breathe. And I'm okay with not being comfortable. I always have been. But the fact that the quote unquote people behind this, right, the system behind this, did such a great job to keep me 51 years before I got to this information. They did a really, really, really good job, right? And I think that is the answer to my question, is because they're intentionally doing this and they're doing it gradually, is why it takes us so long to finally say enough is enough. It's time to plan our escape, or it's time to plan
and also
a different lifestyle.
The majority of people never come to that conclusion. I would say it's
Absolutely.
highly over 50% that never even come to that recognition.
Well, if we think about, and again, not blaming anybody, right, from our family members, but I mean, if we think about our parents, grandparents, and their grandparents, which we were able to connect at one point, they were unaware fully. And I'm not blaming them. It's just they have done such a great job to keep us uninformed. And
right.
So I think that is the answer to at least my question to this, because it is a very interesting story on both Anna and Thomas. But it's definitely, I'm curious. I'm curious just to know why, but it's human nature. I mean, it makes sense,
Yeah. And I think there's a third sector. There's those who will take the bread and circus because it's just more convenient. Okay. So the trade-off of being in servitude is okay for them. Then those who recognize this enslavement and it's mostly indenture contract signing, and they want freedom. They see it. But in that sector, there's a huge part who are just give up. They say it's too hard, takes too much time. I'm going to have to study this, reconnect with people, with a different section of people. So it's just too hard, and I'll just stay where I'm at. And I don't, I can't blame them. I can't blame them, because it is quite a journey. But then there's us that,
Think of wild versus domesticated animals. There's a certain benefit to the domesticated animals to not have their freedom. They get food, water.
They're comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They'll always come back home, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But a certain other group loves the wild, right? It's really just two completely different ways of being and thinking with different levels of risk. There's certain people that are very capable of self-governance. There's other people that aren't capable of self-governance and need a controller.
Good point.
So I think that brings us back to, one of our main concepts is that we're not out to beat up the system and say, rile you up and say the system is making you a slave. No, the system's not making you a slave. You just don't realize it for the most part, or it's not important to you. One of the two. Either of those is okay. But if it's that you don't realize it and you would like to be on the free side, you have to put in the effort to study, figure it out, take the risks, just like a wild animal has to.
Yeah. And on the story here where Anna has an indenture agreement, right? A written agreement. She knows when it's going to end, and it just brings me to, well, at least we think it's going to end, right? But when you enter into a mortgage agreement, right, we know it's going to end after 30 years after that agreement. But then along the way come a lot of incentives, right, to refi, HELOCs, continue extending that 30 years further and further. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, right? We're entering into these agreements, binding ourselves where we have to use our future labor, right, to cover these agreements. So,
and I found it interesting that even at the end of her agreement, Anna stayed on. Now, the thinking process is, I'm going to stay on now and prepare money so that I can afford to leave. Hard telling if she ever did make that, right? But after years, what was it, 7 years, most of those agreements, right?
Mm-hmm.
After that would be kind of hard to go out on your own at that stage, no matter how much you wanted the freedom, right? That would take work and a whole different thinking process, how to maneuver in a free environment. And it's interesting to me that Thomas, what he did was he was planning to get the heck out of there, right? So, I mean, he had been under oppressive slavery and made the choice to take the risk to get out. And Anna had been kind of a slave, right? But a choice, contracted choice situation where she was looking to get something for the trade-off. And she chose to hang in there after that was done, with the concept of in the future actually becoming free.
Interesting.
All quiet.
No, interesting.
Yeah,
it's
thinking
like
that
processing the info. Definitely.
that it's like the parallel. Then does it become, more with all of these indentured servants? Okay, that's one contract, but then does it fold into another contract? Then, okay, you'll get a small plot of land. Maybe that was part of the deal, and it usually was, that you can work, for yourself. But then you must agree to pay your housing, your food, your this, your that. Are you back to then the company town here? Okay, and I look at kind of what this environment, just where I currently am, in the last 4 years, food prices have doubled. Yet the actually providers of these, the growers, are being paid less for the product, but yet the end product has doubled. Housing has gone up significantly. Everything, from insurance, you name it, has the company town just raised the prices more and more, that that we don't get ahead. And a lot of this is contractual, but a lot of it is just, you're going to have to get a little tougher in a world of convenience to say, how do I then work this so that I am benefiting more? And that we've approached some of those solutions, but it is some work, and it's a tough decision because it ain't easy.
You know how in current times we're always talking about the rat race of 9 to 5 people having to rinse and repeat every day, doing the same thing just to survive, per se, living paycheck to paycheck. So do you think it's like it stems from like the parents' mistake or fault in not informing their kids that that is not the way to go? Like you're like, in other words, like it's not the way to go. Like what I'm saying is, like, most of us, most parents, we are encouraging our kids to go to school, right? And then as soon as you turn 18, you're going to, or even before 18, you're going to get a job. Like, are we the ones making the mistake of encouraging our kids? Or is it that we're making the mistake because the mistake was also on us? Where, again, it goes back to uninformed, right? It goes to not knowing. But what I'm asking is, if a lot of the stuff we currently work for to pay just to survive, shelter, food, transportation, and so forth, right? If a lot of that was to be free for us, our mistake as parents is that we're not teaching our kids how to live that way from the beginning versus encouraging them to do what everybody else does, per se. Go to school, work. We're encouraging. We're the ones at fault, is what I'm saying.
Well, I hate to use the word fault because I don't think it's really
accountability.
Yeah,
I'm a parent. I'm taking accountability.
Yeah, but for the most part, I think most parents got the same thing from their parents. And, I think actually now, just with the internet available and the ability to gather data and get different ways of thinking from other people, I think the younger generation now has a lot better opportunity if they choose to pursue it. I think in the past, you really wouldn't be exposed to anything other than what everybody else is doing. Now, at least, there's the option of kind of piquing your interest from even things like this podcast. That's really the purpose of this podcast, right? To capture people where they are and just not tell them what they should do, but just pique their interest of maybe there's a different approach that's possible if that's something that you're interested in. If, on the other hand, you're very comfortable doing what everybody else is doing, this is not going to be helpful for you.
Gotcha. We have information at our fingertips, is what you're saying, and they do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And previously, that was not the case. Exactly. Even us growing up. Right? Yeah. Us growing up, that was not the case. So I get it. It should be, there should be more awareness now, just because it comes to them, right? It comes to them. It's at their fingertips.
Yeah. In fact, my guess is that a lot of the younger people are turning back and teaching their parents what can be, because the parents aren't aware of it. And I think it's entirely likely that the younger ones have a difficult time convincing their parents that there may be a better approach.
Yeah, here in the United States, it just has made it super easy, right, for us to, in modern times, right, to continue that indenture, of just having the accessibility to credit so easily. It's easy to step into it. Of course, of course, I want to get that $10,000 credit card to be able to consume it, right? That's the mentality as we're growing up. Then we realize, like, wow, what have we just done? And that's definitely an eye opener for a lot of us. So,
and I think, like, we can say it's easier, but it's also nowadays, but it's also much more difficult to extract from those conveniences. And here's the example: okay, my grandparents or great grandparents, they had huge families. We're talking 13, 15 children. And they raised them because there was a huge family garden. There was a well for water. The only reason they had to stay connected to the system and, in their situations was because of electricity that had come on board. And, 50 years before that, they didn't even, there wasn't even electricity where you needed something centralized. Okay. Now, yes, we have we'll call it the mandates or the contracts for taxation. But back then you could disconnect and go live on a mountaintop and you could be happy. Nowadays, what do you have? You need internet, you need electricity, you need, the obviously phone service with that. You need water service. You have to go within the system. And then you're also told you need to contract into taxation. So there's a lot of learning, but there's also, it's also made it so easy to give up and take the benefits and privileges, number one, and a lot harder to extract from it and take this journey. So here we are. And that's why you need to develop a community where we can kind of, help each other to say, it's okay, there's a pathway. And that's why I love, Rebecca and Jonathan in this book, because it's leading somewhere.
I always like to look at nature to kind of reflect what I see in humans, because humans are part of nature, strangely enough. And conditioning it's a concept that everybody should really understand. And when you look at like domesticated animals, for example, they have the capacity to do all kinds of things they choose not to do because of conditioning. Like an elephant who could rip that steak out of the ground and run across the room, but they don't, because they've been conditioned from when they were little to not do that, right? And then they never turn around and go, who am I? Does this really hold me here? Or there's another, have you ever seen the fleas in a jar thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you leave the lid off, they can jump all over the place. But if you put the lid on for a certain period of time, you can take the lid off and they will have learned that there's no way to get out of there. And so they just don't try anymore. So you don't even have to have the lid there and they can't jump out of it. Not that they can't. They've forgotten who they are.
Yeah.
And we're all the same way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Exactly. Or they never knew, if generationally never knew.
Yes.
Because of how they were brought up. And then, so there are a couple of things. One, you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or then two, there are too many perks to accepting the confines or accepting the contracts. And it ultimately is contracts. Number three, fear. Because that is the ultimate. When people start to wake up enough, the only recourse really, because you can't convince them otherwise, there aren't enough benefits to say you don't get to be free. Then it becomes, fear is the ultimate. And I think that a lot of that is being put out there, but we need to take a step back and look around us to say, is this a real fear, or is it something being told to me that I have to accept? Or, what is the fear point here? And I think that's where a lot of us, we've had to balance that, to say, look, I'm bigger than the fear. And number two, I'm bigger than the benefits and privileges to want my freedom. Because now we know, which was the point one, right? Those who just didn't know.
The fear thing is really true. And it reminds me of, there was a meme, or it was a comedian that we all listened to not too long ago, where something happened. I don't remember exactly what it was, but the fear came from, if you don't do this, we will send you a strongly worded letter. And people will get a letter in the mail and freak out, scared to death. Their heart will race because they're afraid of what this letter might say.
And then he said, And if you still don't do it, we'll send you a second letter.
That's right. And it's going to have stuff on the outside and red written on it, and it's going to be really, really serious.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up.
But people really allow themselves to get scared to death over something that hasn't happened, called a threat. Oh, dear.
We need to play it on the show. We need to play it on an upcoming show. It'll just be memes and comedians telling the truth. But we can fill a couple of hours with that, I'm sure.
Yeah. And it's accessible to people when you see it in comedy like that, because it becomes so obvious how stupid it is that we get afraid of these things as if they're really going to harm us.
Now to help, I know it's a meme, and I know you, Eliza and Ken, you guys understand what you guys are talking about and everything, and I know what you're talking about as well. But for the people out there, it more of a realistic thing is like like you're talking about, I owe a bill, and now it went to collections.
Mm-hmm.
And now we start receiving notices from the collections company. And after every notice, they threaten differently and more aggressive. So we start becoming fear. Like, I know it's a meme, it's a joke. They used it to sort of let us know that is how we react, right? But it's very comparable to the collection notice, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that what you guys are referring to?
Yeah.
And I think, and you bring up a good point, Reina Stella. Like, we can't ignore this. We've contracted into things, okay? We must learn, and this is like with Rebecca and Jonathan and their approach through the White Rabbit Academy. It's what is the right way to respond. We have somehow, we didn't know in a lot of cases, somehow created a contract, so therefore we are responsible, okay? No fighting, no fear. But how do I respond to this responsibly? Because there is a contract there until I can get out of the contract and do that responsibly as well. We don't just walk away, because we will get ourselves into some hot water because we're ignoring the situation. So that's a great point you bring up, is that there's a good way and a not so good way, because it's like ignoring any problem in life. You can't just walk away, or it usually gets a little bit bigger on us.
Right. And that's a huge component of the things that we do with White Rabbit, is we do not ignore things. We approach them very directly, and we stay in honor is the wording for it. The difference is that what most people think their options are with the contract that they've gotten themselves into is not really all the options that you have. But if you don't know the other options, this is all you've got, right? So we don't ignore, we don't get ourselves in trouble. We honor things appropriately, but that's not necessarily going to be in the way that you think you've got to stay in honor. And I can't go any deeper than that at this point, or it wouldn't make any sense at all.
But hang with us.
That's
or I can pick on you a little bit, Ken, right?
Go for it.
No, but it becomes very fun because even like the example I used of a collection company, you don't even have a contract with a collection company, but we stay in honor with them either way, regardless.
Yes.
It becomes super fun, definitely, once we get into the actual dues of how to stay in honor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fear comes way down.
Yes, dramatically.
That's right.
And then when the letter comes in the mail, you just go, oh, cool, they sent me another letter. I can respond to it appropriately. Seriously,
yes.
It just changes your thinking process and how your emotions respond to things. It becomes completely different.
Well, that's when we start learning how to play the game and get really good at it.
Mm-hmm. And it is
and
a
we
game.
start enjoying it.
And the other side knows how to play the game.
Yes. So, my last thought here on the story that we just read, Anna wanted to help other people. And I want to help other people. And I know, Ken, Eliza, you want to help other people. And that's why we are all part of White Rabbit, and why we're discussing.
Academy, yeah.
That's right. And we'll make it fun. It'll be a fun game. You guys will learn how to play it.
Yeah. So we haven't really mentioned a whole lot in the past, but I always have it on the tail of the podcast that we are affiliates for whiterabbit.academy. And there's an affiliate link that will be in the notes underneath the video, no matter where you're watching this. And be happy to have you take a look at that.
Awesome.
We want to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot to learn there. All right, guys, this has been a fun one. It's a little different than what we've done in the past.
It has been a fun one and a great discussion at the end to tie things together. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
All right.
Likewise. Much love.
See you on 22.
See ya. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The views expressed in this Liberty Ark podcast are for informational and educational purposes only. They do not constitute legal or tax advice, and they may not reflect the official positions of anyone at all, really. We want to express our appreciation to the authors of the unpublished manuscript titled The Great International Heist, on which the Liberty Ark podcast is based. Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues, the authors, provide courses that go into much greater depth and are available at libertyarkpodcast.com/white rabbit.